How you going, everyone? It's Hayden, or Hacker Rolls, or Hayde Shows, or I don't have a name, so we'll see how this goes. I just wanted to do a quick video, maybe not so quick, on a course that I did and the adjustments I made on some Jenkins infrastructure automation pipeline thingamajig. After a bit of testing my microphone, it sounds a lot better because I was using the desktop audio and it was picking up the fan. So again, just recording on my laptop screen so that I don't have to muck around with any settings on my girlfriend's massive curved 34-inch monitor. Anyhow, so the course I did was from More Than Certified. I saw it on LinkedIn, and I've been learning more and more about infrastructure as code and really wanted to dig into Jenkins and Ansible. And then so the person, Derek is the name, had a sale on for a bundle. So I purchased the bundle and have done the DevOps in the cloud with Terraform, Ansible, and Jenkins. It's really cool. It connects to three, pulls from GitHub, which is really awesome. I made a GitHub locally as well and network diagram to show it all. But just wanted to show this was where the original idea came from. And I learned quite a bit. I was comfortable with Terraform before, but there was a few little things like loops and indexes, or Terraform state list or state show is really good as well. So let's kick it off. This is my second video, so hopefully my audio and my talking presentation skills are better. So what did we build, or what did I build, I guess? We built a pipeline that when users or anyone pushes to the GitHub repo, a webhook updates the Jenkins server. And then based on the update, Jenkins runs a build pipeline, and then it uses Terraform to build the infrastructure. So the AWS Grafana VPC, security group, public subnet, all the pipes so it can have internet. And then Ansible simply configures the Grafana server so that Grafana shows up on port 3000. Nice and simple. I did it differently because Derek uses Cloud9, which is an EC2 system, and he has it sitting in the same VPC, I think. So it just when it detects the GitHub updating, it just builds Grafana there. I wanted to do it differently because I was just playing around and I didn't want to do it for my local machine. So I had Terraform build Jenkins itself. It builds its own VPC. I've just got the logo saying Jenkins VPC. And then it builds its own infrastructure. Then you configure Jenkins and then GitHub and all of that. And then it pushes out and builds Grafana, which was pretty cool. I haven't finished all of it. We configure Prometheus, I think, as well. So I'm just getting more DevOps skills, and this was really cool to do. So I guess the start is probably the Terraform code. Yeah, if I go into it and you go into the compute, you'll see that you choose a AMI with the owner, and it's just Ubuntu 20. The random ID, DevOps node ID, is basically so that when you create something or create a name, it adds 2 random numbers to the end. Simple as that. It does go through teaching you how to for loop through subnets, which was interesting. The compute itself, the instance that builds Jenkins, you can use count, which just is the number that you set in the variable, the instant type as above, the AMI as above, excuse me, and then you can set the key event name. And then you tie a VPC ID to it, or security groups, which is really cool. And then here I added an instance profile. This is different because it's not an EC2 system in the VPC already, and he goes through adding security groups to allow the Jenkins server to then build stuff. But I just created one with the help of Google, and then it allows the instance itself to assume a role, and then it ties the roles together, and the role itself allows access to S3, EC2, RDS autoscaling. But honestly, you can just delete like that. It would just go RDS IAM. that would be it, and then that. Damn, square brackets, yeah, something like that. So that would work. And then for the infrastructure, networking, my bad, wrong one. It's in Canadian Central because I'm in Canada. It does list all the AZs, and .available names is pretty cool because if you go, I don't know if it works, Terraform state list, and you then put that in, it'll just give you a list of all the availability zones, which is really cool. And then again, I've got the random ID so that names get random ID, such as VPC plus 2 decimals. And then you create the gateway and you associate the route tables so that like your public route table, everything from inbound can come in the internet, and then your private route table as well. And what's cool is when you can build subnets and you can build one subnet or multiple subnets with a loop. And so this is just saying the length of the number AZs -1 because I didn't want 3 in subnets, I only wanted 2. Tie it to the VPC, and for the CIDR subnet, create blocks of 24, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. And then again, name it count index +1, and do the same for the subnets, and then associate the route tables as appropriate. That's nice that way. This was just the one for setting up the Jenkins infrastructure. It's very similar to the Grafana one. And then this also, I think, yeah. So I changed it. I install, yeah, that's a temporary Jenkins key, which I'll delete. I'd actually, on a local provisioner, it will run an Ansible playbook to install Jenkins straight away. I sort of cheated because this was my Jenkins one, so it wasn't using Jenkins to build itself, if that makes sense. So it just sets up the initial infrastructure. In Jenkins server itself, I'll show you how Ansible runs there. And then it's going to, for all the instances, it's just going to loop through and show you that the public IP and that Jenkins, it should be on port 8080. Just highlighting my cursor so it looks better. Oh, but it's not working on OBS. That sucks. Maybe that's because I'm not sharing the screen. Anyhow, the one is from Jenkins. So this one will build Grafana. And if we scroll down, I've got the public IP address being 3000. But it actually doesn't use Ansible. So this was for testing locally and all that. So I'll show you how it works later. And then it gets another, gets given permissions to access EC2 on that as needed, which I don't think the Grafana one really needs that. I might do some testing, delete it. And there's a Jenkins file, which I'll walk through. This is the automated way to do it. I did have Trufflehog taking a look at it, which I can show. I'm just not sure if it's working. I need to test it. That's what this secrets.test is, just some fake secrets. It didn't pick them up because I don't think it's actually the secret format. It's close, but it's not quite right. Yeah, all right, so let's get to Jenkins. Actually, first off, I wanted to show the Jenkins app that's built because it does integrate with GitHub. And then you go down to applications. And this is my Jenkins DevOps Terra Ansible. I've allowed it to read access to the code and write access to commit statuses as well. I've given it two repositories because I was testing, and then the Jenkins personal one was the one that's actually working. If you go into the app settings, you'll notice that there's the app ID that you create. We just call it Jenkins DevOps Terra Ansible. And then the homepage was my GitHub. But the important bit here is the webhook. It must point to your Jenkins so that Jenkins can pull it and it knows where to go. And then you save that. And then you create a key and you install the app. Yeah, you need to generate private keys, which you then give to Jenkins so that it can select to access the repo, which is pretty cool. Actually install the app. And then from the repo itself, it was my personal Jenkins, or from personal Jenkins, you go to settings, and then you go GitHub apps, and you'll see it here. It's installed to this one as well. I'm not sure if it's this one. Oh, no, if you go to webhooks and then you edit it, what this webhook is going to do is tell Jenkins every time I push to it, anytime there's a change in the code, Jenkins will then build from it. And then I added, I think it was simply, it can update pull requests and pushes. So every time you push to the repository, obviously. And that was it. And then make it active, really. It's really important. So it's a bit of configuring, but you go through it, you get to it. And where that links in Jenkins is that when you go manage Jenkins, manage credentials, you'll see that I have the GitHub app, and all I've done is, I don't know if it'll show it, yeah, update maybe. Yeah, is I've added the app ID, and yay for concealing for confidentiality, you add the key that you create, which is really cool. You just have to tie it all together, and you do troubleshoot because sometimes you miss the AWS key and an SSH key. So the SSH key is for when you create the Grafana server, you must give it a key. So then it uses the same one that Terraform does, and then also the AWS key as needed. But it doesn't really need this because the Jenkins server role already allows it to do AWS command line calls or API calls. So this was more me testing and playing around. Yep. And then so when you have your Jenkins pipeline and you have it connected, let's see if I can go here. This is a manual way to do it. So you pretty much add your GitHub. So I'm from my Jenkins personal Git, which is cool. If I take that out to none, it's going to say it can't connect, yada, yada. But then you add the GitHub ones and it's fine. You want to tell it to pull from the main branch. And then you skip down to execute shell. So here's ls. I'm just going to pull the code and then read the directory. And then if I apply that and manual, and then I've already got one here, but if I go build now, see number 2 pops up. I don't know how, oh, it was instance, I think. Yeah, instant, because it's just ls. And then you go console output, started by me as a user in Jenkins. You can see the URL, the GitHub. And then if I just type ls, it's sort of like this and it works really well. The reason I'm showing this is just because if you want to do anything, you then have to manually do it, and step by step you have to build it. And this is great for learning. No color, and then I think it was export TF automation goes true. And then if I apply that and rerun it, and then you'll want to initialize the Terraform, and then you'll want to apply it, and then you'll want to run Ansible, and then it can become quite, not exhausting, but manual. But it's good for testing. So here we go, Terraform initializing the backend. Successfully configured the backend, the S3, because I'm storing the state file in S3 because this is built from Jenkins. It's not stored on my local laptop, so you need it remotely stored. And then finished a success, which is really cool. It's very manual, so then you want to do Terraform apply, Ansible, and all of that. I don't know if it's worth showing the Ansible here. Configure. Oh yeah, so you can add your Ansible, Ansible playbook. So you would just do path to playbook, and then file would be AWS host, because I have it printing out the IP addresses to AWS host file, and you can do it that way. There is a gotcha with Jenkins, because you do install 2 plugins, or yeah, you do install 2 plugins. One is for Pipeline AWS, just allows it to interact with the AWS API. And then the Ansible one is great, but for me, it didn't install Ansible itself. It installed the functionality within Jenkins. So then I have to manually install Ansible. And what you'll see is in the global tool configuration, I need to then tell it where Ansible is. Ansible installations. See, user bin. You just sudo apt get apt install Ansible, and then you need to tell where it is so it actually works. So now I've shown you the manual bit and setting up Jenkins. Just going to go to the pipeline. So this is a new item. You could do a multi-branch one or just a single branch pipeline. You're good to go. This was prepared earlier. So you can see I've run it no times. Yeah, it did last failure 21 hours ago. Yeah, I've run it. So if I click into it, you can see here I've been testing. Last time I had like 24 trying to get it to work. It was just silly things that you miss. Like the Ansible one, you think Ansible's there. Maybe you're not doing the correct Ansible location to the Ansible playbook, stuff like that. But the configuration really is that, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. Test again is the actual pipeline. And then you tie it to your GitHub repository. You tell it the GitHub app credentials. Can discover branches, pull requests, Jenkins file. And yeah, it's made by a Jenkins file. And then you just put the last 5 days or 5 old items to keep, just so it doesn't ever disappear. So I'm just going to go and build it, and then I'll show you the Ansible script. So if I click build now, it's going to redo it. It's going to do the declarative checkout. So if I click down here and then click into it, I can show you the console output. It's Terraform, it's doing the OS because I kept that in there, Jenkins file, Ansible config, and all of that, which actually I should show you the Ansible scripts as well. This will become a really long video. And then it's just doing the Terraform plan. But in my script, I've put a do you want to apply this plan? And there's some weird bug that when I click this, it doesn't work. So I have to go to main. And on here, I don't know if it's to with Chrome or maybe some plugin I've got. It then validates the apply. And I might pause it because this does take a couple of minutes. But I can show you the console output for now. Yeah, it just keeps going. So it's applying the roles. So it's just doing its Terraform thing, but Jenkins is doing it. And just going to show the Ansible playbook from the Jenkins file. I have it in here to use the AWS _ host file using the private key, the SSH key that I put into Jenkins, as you can see here, and the user's Ubuntu because it's an Ubuntu server. It's just gathering the facts and it's installing all the things required to run Grafana. I had JDK 11 for Jenkins, which I left in because it's just testing. So it's a mix of both code in both areas. And then I'm using Ansible to download that key and Grafana repo and all of that. And in a bit, I'll show Grafana installed. Okay, so Ansible says it's completed, Prometheus has started and all of that. I do have Terraform destroy at the end, so it just cleans it up and doesn't waste money while I'm testing. But so if I take this IP address and port 3000, should do Grafana. Yay, look, it's ready and it's working, which is really cool. I've always had like knowledge of Jenkins and pipelines, but to see it like that and do it and configuring all the small amounts of GitHub and Jenkins and then Terraform and the right permissions to give Jenkins server within AWS the right access to do the thing is really cool. All right, so I will show the Jenkins file. I could do it here. I don't think that's good enough though. Let me pause it. Yeah, okay, so here's my Visual Studio Code. It's not going to highlight the cursor because it's showing in the window, not the desktop display, but it's all right, you can see when I highlight stuff. So it's just broken down to pipeline. The agent we're using is any. We're not specifying an agent because we only have the one. And this TF in automation equals true is set as the environment variable at the top so that we don't have to do it in each step. So then logically, Jenkins has different stages. So you put that. Then for each stage, you have a name such as init and then the steps. You can do such as when you apply and want to ask if the user wants to apply it. You can use an input. The message, do you want to apply this plan? And if they click OK, they're going to apply the plan. The Ansible playbook within the Jenkins file is here. So you have the stage, I called it Ansible, makes sense. The Ansible playbook, the credential ID is the SSH key that we saw when I showed Jenkins. And then the inventory file is AWS_hosts. And the playbook one is the main, not Jenkins, because main installs Grafana and Prometheus. And then you can see here, validate, destroy, and this will actually destroy Terraform. The cool thing Derek put in is if it ever errors on a failure, it will destroy it anyhow, which is really good for testing because sometimes you might not have it set up properly, so you don't want to have to then manually log into the Jenkins server and destroy it if something goes wrong. And then for success, it just echoes success. So we're good to go there. Okay, so time to show you that it's going to do this automatically. So if I go to, once I have from, which file do I want to change? I could do Jenkins and name it init again. Whatever, git status. Yep, I get. And we're just going to commit with a thing testing again with the correct spelling, not that it matters for this. Git push origin main. Let me pause that and I will show the whole screen so that I can show in Jenkins. Oh, hang on, let me destroy it. First would be a good idea. Main Terraform destroy. I'm just going to wait for that to finish. I'll pause. Okay, we've seen that it's just destroyed it. I also logged into EC2 just to show that the DevOps main one is running. That's the Jenkins server itself. I should just rename it Jenkins. So now, if I go back to Visual Studio Code and push it, it's pushed, which is great. And then if I go here and I go actions, Trufflehog should be scanning it. If anyone's interested, Trufflehog sort of just helps scan for credentials in Git repos. And that way, if you leave a AWS key, secret, password, which happens now and again, it'll find it. Because if you squash your commit or don't squash it, it can be in the commit history and easy to find. So that happens a lot and a lot of places have been breached. So that ran. I don't know if I have it set up properly. I just need to do that later, but this video wasn't about that. I just want to connect it for fun. And then if you go back to branch, you can see it's already kicking it off and it's waiting for me here to apply to build it. So it's planned it. And if I click apply this plan, we should see, well, I'll show in a bit. And then we can click this, get a console output. It's built the VPC. So if I go to the VPC, oops, that's not what I wanted, but you can see what I'm Googling and relevant. So default VPC, and you got the made by Jenkins VPC, and then the DevOps one has a Jenkins server in it. So you can see it's doing the thing. which I think is really awesome. Obviously hasn't built the server yet. Yeah, it's still creating it, but you can see it working. So if I go back to the diagram for now, you can see that the user pushes anything to GitHub. Jenkins, it updates Jenkins. Jenkins says, oh, sweet, it's going to reach out, pull it, and build it. And I only built the Jenkins VPC so that it could stay in the cloud because I don't want it on my local laptop. And like developers will have a local environment, I think. And there we go. Made by Jenkins, which is really cool. But Grafana won't be there because I haven't applied the Ansible playbook. Yeah, exactly. Anyhow, that's the project so far. I might do more. I don't know. I just want the video to show what I'm learning, how it's coming along. Thanks, everyone. Bye.